Deep in the heart of the whispering wood, where the trees swayed gently to the rhythm of the wind, there was a quiet little meadow nestled between two hills. This meadow, bathed in soft moonlight each night, had a secret it shared only with those who dared to wander there under the stars. But most of the forest's inhabitants didn't know the meadow's secret, nor did they visit it often. It was quiet, serene, and tucked so far away that even the most curious animals rarely passed by. Lyra, a young fawn with the softest coat the colour of honey, lived at the edge of this magical woodland. She was a quiet soul who preferred listening to the rustling leaves and babbling brooks over joining the chatter of her fellow forest creatures. Though she was shy, Lyra's heart held a deep longing to connect with others, even if she didn't quite know how. Each evening, as the sun set behind the hills, Lyra would stand at the edge of her small grove and watch the golden light fade into purples and blues. She loved the way the stars blinked into existence one by one, as if the sky itself was gently waking up after a long day. Tonight was no different. Lyra nibbled on sweet clover, her ears twitching at the distant hoot of an owl. She gazed at the moon, which hung low and luminous, its light casting silver patterns on the forest floor. But something felt different in the air tonight. There was a kind of hum, soft and barely noticeable, like the forest itself was holding its breath. She tilted her head, her large brown eyes curious. "What is that sound?" she whispered to no one in particular. Lyra's mother, a graceful doe with kind eyes, had always told her stories of the forest's wonders. She spoke of glowing fireflies that danced in hidden groves and streams where the water shimmered like liquid silver. But never had she mentioned a sound like this. A soft, lilting melody that seemed to float on the night breeze. Drawn by the music, Lyra took cautious steps out of her grove, her hooves making barely a sound on the soft moss. The farther she walked, the clearer the melody became. It wasn't like any bird's song or the chirp of crickets. It was deeper, richer, almost like the sound of a harp being played by invisible hands. As she moved closer to the source, the trees began to thin, and the air around her felt lighter, almost as if it were sparkling. Then she saw it, a glade bathed in moonlight, its grass glowing faintly silver. The moon hung directly overhead, casting its beams in such a way that they seemed to dance and shimmer as they touched the earth. Lyra stepped cautiously into the glade, her breath catching at the sight. The moonbeams weren't just lighting the meadow, they were alive, rippling like ribbons of silk. As one beam shifted, it emitted a gentle musical tone, as if plucked by some unseen force. Another beam shimmered nearby, adding a soft note to the melody. Together, the beams created a song so enchanting that Lyra felt as though her heart might burst. She stood frozen, unsure if she should move closer. What if she disturbed the magic of the place? But the melody seemed to welcome her, coaxing her forward. Tentatively, Lyra took a step into the nearest beam of light. To her amazement, the soft note grew clearer, resonating through the glade. She gasped. "Did I do that?" she murmured. Lyra lifted her hoof and moved again, and another note joined the melody. The moonbeams were responding to her. Her heart raced with excitement as she experimented, moving slowly through the glade, letting her movements guide the notes. She turned, hopped, and twirled, and the glade responded in kind, creating a symphony that wrapped around her like a warm blanket. For the first time, Lyra felt like she was part of something bigger, something extraordinary. Her shyness melted away as she lost herself in the melody, her every movement adding to the magical harmony of the meadow. When she finally stopped, her legs trembling from the excitement. The glade grew quiet. The moonlight softened as if it were thanking her for her dance. Lyra looked around, her breath coming in small puffs, and felt an overwhelming sense of peace. "I didn't know," she whispered, her voice soft but full of wonder. "I didn't know something so beautiful could exist." As she made her way back to her grove, her heart felt lighter than it had in years. Lyra couldn't wait to return to the meadow, but more than that, a tiny spark of courage flickered within her. Perhaps this melody, this secret, wasn't just meant for her. Maybe, just maybe, it was something she could share. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the canopy of trees, dappling the forest floor with patches of gold. Lyra awoke in her cozy grove, the memory of the moonlit meadow still fresh in her mind. She stretched her slender legs and shook her soft coat, a mixture of excitement and nervousness bubbling in her chest. Her thoughts swirled as she wandered to the nearby brook for a drink. The water was cool and clear, reflecting her wide brown eyes. She couldn't stop thinking about the glade and its magical music. Was it a dream? Could such a wondrous place truly exist? She dipped her nose into the stream, the cold water calming her thoughts, but the melody still hummed faintly in her mind. As she walked back toward her grove, Lyra noticed something unusual. The birds, who were usually chattering and chirping their morning songs, seemed quieter today. The usual rustling of squirrels leaping between branches was absent. Even the rustling leaves, which sang softly with the wind, seemed subdued. The forest felt different. It wasn't just quiet. It was tense, as though holding on to a secret it wasn't ready to share. Lyra's ears twitched and her heart raced. The same hum from the meadow the previous night began to tickle her ears again, faint and distant. She glanced around, her gaze darting between the trees. Could it be the glade? She whispered to herself. But as quickly as it had appeared, the hum faded, leaving only the heavy stillness of the forest behind. Lyra frowned, her curiosity deepening. Something wasn't right, and though she was naturally timid, the strange shift in the forest stirred a bravery in her she didn't know she had. As she moved cautiously through the woods, she heard hushed voices in the distance. She followed the sound, careful to step lightly on the soft moss so her hooves wouldn't make a sound. Peeking through a thicket, she saw a small gathering of animals near the old cedar stump that served as a meeting place for the forest community. Lyra spotted the wise owl Eldrin perched on the stump, his feathers ruffled as if he'd flown in a hurry. Around him, a group of animals had gathered, including Marlowe the hedgehog, Willow the hare, and Tansy the chipmunk. They were all speaking in worried tones, their voices overlapping like the rustling of leaves in a storm. "It's happening again," Marlowe said, his quills bristling with agitation. "The forest doesn't feel the same. It's like something's missing." Willow's ears twitched nervously. "Do you think it's connected to the silence? The birds hardly sang this morning, and the breeze felt strange." Eldrin cleared his throat, and the animals fell silent. The old owl adjusted his spectacles and looked around solemnly. "I've lived in this forest many seasons, and I've seen its magic ebb and flow. But this is different. The balance feels off." "What do you mean, Eldrin?" Tansy asked, her tiny paws clutching an acorn. "The forest thrives on harmony," Eldrin explained. Every creature, every sound, every breeze. It's all connected. But when something disrupts that balance, the magic of the forest weakens. I fear that's what's happening now." Lyra's heart sank. The idea of the forest losing its magic was unthinkable. She thought of the moonlit meadow and its enchanting melody. Could the glade be part of the forest's magic? And if so, was it in danger too? She wanted to step forward, to ask Eldrin about the meadow and whether it was connected to the forest's harmony. But her shyness held her back. Instead, she listened quietly, her ears straining to catch every word. "We must do something," Marlowe said, his voice firm. "If the balance is off, we need to find the cause and fix it." "But how?" Willow asked. "Where do we even start?" Eldrin sighed, his feathers puffing out slightly. "We must observe. Listen, the forest will guide us if we pay attention. Look for signs of imbalance. Strange sounds, unusual silences, anything out of place. And remember, the answer may come from the most unexpected places." The animals murmured their agreement, and the gathering dispersed, each creature returning to their part of the forest to look for clues. Lyra stayed hidden in the thicket, her mind racing. Eldrin's words echoed in her head. The answer may come from the most unexpected places, the moonlit meadow. The thought sprang into her mind unbidden. Could the meadow hold the key to the forest's imbalance? The melody she had heard felt like it belonged to something far greater than herself, something ancient and powerful. That night, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the stars began to twinkle, Lyra made her way back to the glade. The forest was even quieter than before, the silence pressing against her like a heavy blanket. She quickened her pace, her heart pounding with a mixture of anticipation and unease. When she reached the meadow, it was just as she remembered, bathed in silver light, the moonbeams shimmering and dancing as if alive. But something was different. The melody was faint, fragmented, like a song played on a broken instrument. The harmony that had filled the glade the night before was gone, replaced by dissonance. Lyra stepped cautiously into the meadow, her hooves touching the cool grass. As she moved through the moonlight, she tried to recreate the melody, letting her movements guide the notes. But no matter how she danced, the song didn't come together. It was as though the meadow itself was struggling, its magic faltering. Frustrated and worried, Lyra stopped and looked up at the moon. "What's happening?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "Why is the meadow losing its music?" As if in response, a soft breeze brushed past her, carrying with it a faint hum. Lyra's ears perked up. The sound was coming from the far edge of the glade, where the trees grew thicker and shadows danced in the moonlight. She followed the sound, weaving through the trees until she reached a small hollow. There, nestled among the roots of an ancient oak, was a strange sight, a small glowing orb of light pulsing gently like a heartbeat. It was the source of the hum, its light flickering like a candle in the wind. Lyra approached cautiously, her eyes wide with wonder. She had never seen anything like it. The orb seemed alive, its glow warm and inviting. But as she reached out a tentative hoof, the light dimmed and the hum grew fainter. Panic surged through her. "Don't fade," she pleaded. "I don't know what you are, but I think you're important. Please stay with me." The orb flickered once more, as if acknowledging her words, before settling into a steady, though faint, glow. Lyra knew then that the meadow's melody, and perhaps the forest's harmony, was tied to this mysterious light. But what it was and why it was faltering remained a mystery. Lyra's resolve hardened. She couldn't let the light fade. Somehow, she would find a way to restore its strength and bring the meadow's music back to life. For the first time, her shyness felt less like a barrier and more like a challenge she was ready to overcome. Lyra awoke the next morning with a renewed sense of purpose. The image of the glowing orb nestled in the roots of the ancient oak stayed vivid in her mind. Though the faint hum of the melody haunted her thoughts, it also fueled her determination. She needed to understand the light's connection to the meadow and the forest's harmony. The sun was just peeking over the horizon when Lyra set out, her delicate hooves crunching softly on the forest floor. The woodland creatures were just beginning to stir, and the air was cool and fresh. As she walked, Lyra thought about Eldrin's words. "The forest will guide us if we pay attention." Lyra decided her first step would be to visit Eldrin himself. The wise owl lived in an ancient, hollow tree near the center of the forest, its twisted branches forming a natural perch that allowed him to see everything. Eldrin was already awake, his sharp eyes scanning the forest as Lyra approached. "Good morning, Lyra," Eldrin hooted warmly, adjusting his spectacles. "What brings you here so early?" Lyra hesitated for a moment before explaining everything. How she had found the moonlit meadow, the mysterious melodies, and the dimming orb of light she'd discovered the night before. As she spoke, Eldrin's expression grew more serious, his feathers ruffling slightly. "This is troubling news," Eldrin said, his voice low. "The orb you describe is not something I've seen before, but it sounds like it could be a part of the forest's ancient magic. If it's faltering, the balance of the entire forest could be at risk." "What should I do?" Lyra asked, her wide eyes filled with concern. Eldrin tapped his talons on the branch thoughtfully. "To understand the orb's purpose and how to restore its strength, you'll need to learn more about the forest magic. There are places in this forest that hold old secrets, places where the magic runs deep. Visit them, listen to what they have to say, and the answers may reveal themselves." Lyra nodded, her resolve strengthening. "Where should I go first?" "There are 3 sacred places in the forest that I know of," Eldrin replied. "The Whispering Pines, the Crystal Creek, and the Starfall Clearing. Each holds its own kind of magic. Start with the Whispering Pines. They are the keepers of the forest's oldest stories." Thanking Eldrin, Lyra turned toward the north, where the Whispering Pines stood tall and proud. The journey would be long, but Lyra felt ready. The thought of the faltering orb filled her with urgency, and her usually timid nature was replaced by determination. The Whispering Pines loomed tall and majestic as Lyra entered their domain. Their silver-green needles shimmered in the sunlight, and a soft, otherworldly whisper seemed to flow through their branches. Lyra stood still, her ears twitching as she tried to make sense of the sound. The whispers weren't random. They were words, faint and elusive, carried on the wind. She stepped deeper into the grove, her hooves crunching on the pine needles carpeting the ground. The whispers grew clearer, forming fragments of sentences that danced on the edge of her understanding. The moon, harmony, light. Lyra closed her eyes and focused, letting the whispers wash over her. She remembered how she had moved through the moonlight in the meadow, how her body had created music in harmony with the light. Slowly, she began to step through the grove, her movements mirroring the dance she had performed in the meadow. As she moved, the whispers grew louder, more coherent. "Seek the flowing crystal. The song must blend." Lyra paused, her heart pounding. The whispers seemed to be guiding her to the next place, the Crystal Creek. But before she left, she asked softly, "Why is the orb fading? What can I do to save it?" The pines rustled in response, their whispers taking on a mournful tone. "The harmony is broken. The light cannot shine alone. It seeks its counterpart." Though she didn't fully understand, Lyra felt a glimmer of hope. The orb wasn't beyond saving. It just needed her help. The journey to the Crystal Creek was longer and more challenging. The terrain grew rocky, and Lyra had to navigate steep inclines and narrow paths. The sound of rushing water reached her ears before she saw it, a steady, melodic rhythm that felt soothing and familiar. When Lyra reached the creek, she gasped at its beauty. The water was so clear it seemed to sparkle like glass, and smooth stones of every colour lined the creek bed, catching the sunlight. As Lyra approached the edge, the creek's melody seemed to change, harmonizing with her steps. She knelt by the water, her reflection rippling on its surface. "Crystal Creek," she murmured, "I've come to learn how to restore the forest's harmony. Can you help me?" The water shimmered and a soft voice seemed to rise from its depths. "Harmony is a blend of many notes, young one. Just as this creek flows with many streams, the melody you seek must unite the voices of the forest." Lyra's heart raced. "How do I bring the voices together?" "Seek the Starfall Clearing," the creek replied. "There, under the light of the stars, the voices may join. But beware, young one, harmony is fragile and it must be nurtured with care." Lyra nodded, the weight of the task settling on her shoulders. As she stood to leave, she noticed a small glowing stone nestled among the creek's rocks. It pulsed faintly, its light resembling the orb she had found in the meadow. Taking the stone, Lyra felt a warmth spread through her, as if the creek had passed some of its magic to her. She whispered her thanks and turned toward her next destination, the Starfall Clearing. The Starfall Clearing lay on the edge of the forest, where the trees gave way to an open expanse of grass and wildflowers. By the time Lyra arrived, the sun was setting, and the sky was awash with hues of orange and pink. She paused at the edge of the clearing, awed by its beauty. Tiny motes of light danced among the flowers, their glow growing brighter as the sky darkened. As the first stars appeared, Lyra stepped into the clearing. The air was alive with a soft hum, a sound that resonated deep within her. She clutched the glowing stone from the creek, feeling its warmth pulse in time with the hum. Suddenly, the motes of light began to gather, swirling around Lyra like a constellation come to life. They danced in patterns, their movements creating a melody that filled the clearing. Lyra watched in amazement, realizing that the lights were responding to her presence. She stepped forward, her movements tentative at first, then more confident. The lights followed her lead, their song harmonizing with her steps. Lyra's heart swelled with a sense of belonging. She wasn't just a part of the forest, she was a part of its song. The clearing seemed to come alive, the motes of light forming shapes and patterns that told a story. Lyra saw images of the moonlit meadow, the whispering pines, and the crystal creek. She saw the glowing orb and the balance it represented. And she saw herself, a small fawn with a big heart, as the key to restoring that balance. As the stars above reached their zenith, Lyra understood what she had to do. The melody wasn't just something to be observed, it was something to be created, shared, and nurtured, and she was the one who could bring it to life. Clutching the glowing stone, Lyra whispered a silent promise to the forest. She would restore its harmony, no matter what it took. The stars gleamed brilliantly above the Starfall Clearing, casting their silvery glow over Lyra and the swirling motes of light. The melody resonating in the clearing had grown more complex, each note weaving together to form a harmonious symphony that echoed deep within her heart. Lyra knew the moment of truth had come, the final step to restoring the fading orb and the harmony of the forest. The glowing stone she carried pulsed warmly in her grasp, its light flickering in rhythm with the melody. Lyra stepped forward, her hooves crunching softly against the grass, and looked up at the vast expanse of stars above. "What now?" she whispered, her voice carried on the breeze. The motes of light swirled faster in response, converging in the center of the clearing to form a radiant column of light that stretched toward the heavens. From the depths of the forest, a soft, rustling sound emerged. Lyra turned to see creatures of all shapes and sizes stepping cautiously into the clearing. Deer, rabbits, foxes, squirrels, birds, and even a few shy badgers gathered around, their eyes wide with awe as they gazed at the glowing column. Eldrin, the wise owl, flew down to perch on a nearby branch. "The forest has heard your call, Lyra," he said, his voice filled with reverence. "This is the moment when all voices must come together." Lyra's heart raced. She realized that the melody she had been creating wasn't just hers. It was meant to unite every creature in the forest. She stepped into the center of the clearing, the glowing stone in one hoof, and faced the gathered crowd. "Everyone!" she called out, her soft voice carrying across the clearing. "The forest's harmony is fading, but we can restore it, together. We each have a melody inside us, and we must share it to bring the light back to life." The creatures exchanged uncertain glances, their shyness mirroring Lyra's own. She took a deep breath and closed her eyes, allowing the melody within her to guide her. Slowly she began to move, her steps light and deliberate, as if she were tracing the patterns of the stars above. As Lyra danced, the motes of light responded, their glow intensifying. The melody grew stronger, filling the clearing with a sense of magic and possibility. One by one, the creatures joined in. The birds began to chirp, a sweet harmony. The rabbits thumped their paws rhythmically, and the foxes howled a haunting yet beautiful refrain. The ground beneath their feet seemed to hum with energy as the melodies of the forest creatures blended together. Lyra felt the glowing stone in her hoof grow warmer, its light spreading until it filled the entire clearing. The motes of light swirled around her, lifting her spirits and giving her the courage to continue leading the dance. As the melody reached its crescendo, the column of light began to shift. It expanded outward, enveloping the clearing and spreading into the forest beyond. The trees glimmered with a silvery glow, their leaves shimmering like liquid light. The animals' eyes shone with joy as they felt the forest's harmony being restored. Suddenly, a familiar hum filled the air. Lyra turned to see the orb she had discovered in the moonlit meadow floating gently toward her. It was brighter than she had ever seen it, its light pulsating in time with the melody. The orb hovered above the clearing, its glow bathing everyone in a warm, comforting radiance. Lyra stepped forward, her heart pounding as she reached out to touch it. The moment her hoof made contact, a surge of energy coursed through her, filling her with a sense of connection to the forest and its magic. The orb pulsed once, twice, and then burst into a shower of sparkling light. The fragments scattered across the clearing, merging with the motes of light and the stars above. The melody shifted, becoming richer and more profound, as if the forest itself were singing a song of gratitude. The creatures cheered, their voices blending into a jubilant symphony. Lyra stood at the center of the clearing, her chest heaving with exertion and her heart brimming with pride. She had done it. The forest's harmony had been restored and the light had returned. Eldrin fluttered down from his perch, his feathers ruffling with approval. "Well done, Lyra," he said, his eyes twinkling. "You've reminded us all of the power of unity and self-expression. The forest owes you a great debt." Lyra blushed, her shyness returning as the crowd of animals surrounded her, offering their thanks and admiration. She smiled at each of them, feeling a warmth in her chest that she'd never experienced before. For the first time, she felt truly connected to her community. So, as the celebration continued, Lyra noticed that the motes of light had gathered once more, forming a path leading back to the moonlit meadow. She followed the trail, the creatures trailing behind her, curious to see what awaited them. When they arrived at the meadow, they gasped in wonder. The orb's light had transformed the meadow into a breathtaking spectacle. The flowers glowed with a soft luminescence, their petals shimmering like silk. The grass sparkled with dewdrops that reflected the moonlight, and the air was filled with a serene melody that seemed to emanate from the very earth. The animals settled into the meadow, their excitement giving way to a peaceful contentment. Lyra stood at the center, her gaze fixed on the sky. The stars seemed closer than ever, their light blending seamlessly with the glow of the meadow. "This is your gift, Lyra," Eldrin said, his voice soft. "You've shown us the beauty of harmony, and this meadow will forever be a place of unity and creativity." Lyra smiled, her heart swelling with joy. She realized that the melody of the moonlit meadow wasn't just a song. It was a reflection of the forest spirit, a reminder of the magic that came from working together. That night, as the creatures of the forest drifted into a peaceful sleep, Lyra lay in the center of the glowing meadow. The stars above seemed to wink at her, as if acknowledging her bravery and kindness. She closed her eyes, her heart full of gratitude, and let the melody of the forest lull her into the most restful sleep she had ever known. From that day forward, the moonlit meadow became a place of gathering and celebration. The animals visited often, bringing their own melodies to share and weaving their voices into the symphony of the forest. And Lyra, the shy fawn who had discovered her courage, was always there to lead the dance and remind everyone of the magic they carried within. The forest was alive with harmony once more, and the melody of the moonlit meadow would echo through its trees for generations to come. As the celebration in the moonlit meadow began to quiet, the creatures of the forest found their places among the glowing flowers and soft grass. The symphony of melodies shifted into a soothing lullaby, a gentle song carried by the cool night breeze. The stars above twinkled serenely as if offering their own nod of approval. Lyra stood at the heart of the meadow, her gaze lifting to the sky. She took a deep breath, the crisp air filling her lungs and calming her racing heart. Her journey had been long, but it had also been rewarding. Now it was time to rest and let the melody she had created guide everyone into peaceful dreams. "Everyone," Lyra called softly, her voice carrying the same gentle tone as the night itself. "It's time to rest. The forest has given us its song, and now we must embrace its peace." The animals nodded, their movements slow and deliberate as they settled into cozy spots around the meadow. Lyra herself knelt in the soft grass, folding her legs beneath her and letting the glow of the flowers envelop her like a warm blanket. "Close your eyes," Lyra whispered, her voice gentle and soothing. "Let your body relax, just like the flowers swaying gently in the breeze. Feel how the earth cradles you, soft and steady, as though the forest itself is holding you in its arms. The animals around her obeyed, their eyes fluttering shut as they let go of the day's excitement. The sounds of the forest, a distant owl's hoot, the rustling of leaves, the faint hum of the meadow's melody became their lullaby. "Take a deep breath," Lyra continued, her own breathing slow and even. "Breathe in the cool, crisp air of the night. Feel it fill your chest, spreading calm and peace through your whole body. Now, breathe out, letting all your worries drift away like leaves on the wind." She demonstrated, inhaling deeply and exhaling with a soft sigh. The animals mirrored her, their breathing syncing with hers until the entire meadow seemed to rise and fall in unison. As the creatures began to relax, Lyra spoke again, her voice soft and rhythmic, like the melody of the meadow itself. "You are safe here, surrounded by the forest's love and the light of the stars. Feel the warmth of the meadow beneath you, the gentle glow of the flowers wrapping you in a cocoon of comfort." Her words were like a spell, weaving a sense of security and serenity throughout the clearing. Even the shyest creatures, who usually kept to the shadows, felt at ease under Lyra's guidance. "Let your muscles relax, one by one," Lyra said. "Start with your hooves or paws, feel them soften and grow heavy. Then let the calm move up your legs, to your shoulders, to your back. Let the peace spread to your ears, your eyes, your whole body." The animals stretched and shifted, releasing the tension from their bodies. A rabbit yawned and snuggled deeper into the grass, while a fox curled its tail around itself, its ears twitching as it listened to Lyra's soothing voice. "The stars above are watching over us," Lyra continued, her tone steady and reassuring. "Their light is gentle and kind, like the glow of the meadow. Imagine their light falling over you like a soft, silvery blanket, wrapping you in peace and quiet." The creatures envisioned the stars' light, their imaginations filling in the gaps as they felt the warmth of safety and comfort. Lyra smiled, sensing the calm that had settled over the meadow. "Now," she whispered, "let your mind drift, like a leaf floating on a quiet stream. There's no need to hold on to thoughts or worries. They can flow away, carried by the melody of the forest." Her own thoughts became light and airy, the melody filling her mind like a gentle breeze. She let the music guide her, imagining it weaving through the trees, across the meadow, and into the dreams of every creature present. "Think of a place that makes you feel happy," Lyra said after a moment. "It might be a sunny glade, a cool stream, or even this meadow. Picture it in your mind, the colours, the sounds, the way it feels. Imagine yourself there, free and light as the stars above." The animals' faces softened as they visualized their safe places. A squirrel imagined climbing the tallest tree and looking out at the sunrise. A hedgehog pictured its snug burrow lined with soft moss. Lyra herself thought of the first time she danced in the moonlit meadow, the joy and wonder filling her heart. As the melody softened, Lyra spoke her final affirmations. "You are peaceful, you are safe, you are loved. The forest is here for you, always holding you in its embrace." Her voice faded into the quiet hum of the meadow. The animals were asleep now, their dreams filled with the harmony of the forest and the glow of the stars. Lyra smiled, her heart full as she lay down among the glowing flowers. She felt the earth's warmth beneath her and the stars' light above her. "Good night, everyone," she murmured, her own eyes closing. "May your dreams be as beautiful as the melody of the moonlit meadows." The forest fell silent, the only sound the soft rustle of leaves and the gentle hum of the meadow's song. The stars watched over the sleeping creatures, their light a constant reminder of the harmony that Lyra had helped restore. And so, under the serene glow of the moon and the watchful gaze of the stars, the moonlit meadow cradled its visitors in peace, ensuring their dreams were as magical as the melody that had brought them together.